For those of you who don't know what white privilege is, this video clip is going to clearly outline what white privilege is.
Outrage is growing over the lenient sentence for a former Stanford University swimmer in the sexual assault of an unconscious woman after a party. Brock Turner's 6-month sentence is spurring efforts to have the judge removed from the bench, and the victim's own impact statement is rallying many into her corner. Here is a portion of that statement describing how the unconscious victim found out what happened to her. She says, "One day, I was at work scrolling through the news on my phone, and I came across an article. In it, I read and learned for the first time about how I was found unconscious with my hair disheveled, long necklace wrapped around my neck, bra pulled out of my dress, dress pulled off over my shoulders and pulled up above my waist. This was how I learned what happened to me sitting at my desk reading the news at work. I learned what happened to me the same time everyone else in the world learned what happened to me." Joining us now is Professor Michelle Landis-Dauber. She is a law professor at Stanford and a friend of the victim. Professor Dauber, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Your friend's impact statement has basically turned the internet on its head. So many people are forwarding it to their friends, are talking about it. Our colleague Ashley Banfeld read the entirety of it yesterday on her show. That started a tremendous conversation online. The one place where it seems that her impact statement did not have the intended impact was in the courtroom, where the judge gave the suspect 6 months in prison as opposed to the 14 years that he could have received. As a law professor, how do you explain that?
Well, I know that the victim is terribly disappointed with that because she did, in fact, write the sentence hoping that the judge would take into account the severity of the crime. I do not agree with the way that the judge applied the law in this case. I don't agree with the decision he came to, and that's why we are working on a recall campaign against him at this point.
You were in the courtroom when your friend, the victim, made that statement. Can you just tell us what that was like? I mean, for a statement to be so long and so powerful and graphic, what was the response in the courtroom?
Well, a lot of people were crying. It was very emotional, but we were trying to be supportive of her, and I think that people were hopeful that Judge Persky would be persuaded. One of the most important factors that he's supposed to consider is the severity of the impact of the crime on the victim when deciding how to make a proportional sentence, but he apparently didn't find it persuasive.
The convict's father, this former swimmer at Stanford University, he also made appeals to the judge, and I want to read those to you. This is the dad of the young man convicted of sexual assault. He said, "That is a steep price to pay for 20 minutes of action out of his 20-plus years of life." There was another portion of the statement that Brock Turner's father made. "I was always excited to buy him a big ribeye steak to grill or to get his favorite snack for him. Now he barely consumes any food and eats only to exist. These verdicts have broken and shattered him and our family in so many ways. His life will never be the one that he dreamed about and worked so hard to achieve." Do you think that those statements swayed the judge?
I do, and I think that the defense attorney had also collected a number of statements from friends and former coaches and people like that who commented on his good character, supposedly. And, my reaction to the father's statement is that it was insensitive and didn't take into account, similarly to the judge, the severe impact on the victim of this crime. For example, comparing the impact of being sexually assaulted to the not liking your favorite snacks anymore, I think really trivialized the sexual assault in ways that were just terribly unfortunate.
So now you are part of the charge that wants to have this judge removed. There have been 200,000 people who've signed a Change.org petition to recall this Superior Court Judge, Aaron Persky. We have asked for the judge to comment, but the judge has said that he cannot because he is embroiled in this recall effort. What do you think will happen?
Well, there are a number of people from Silicon Valley, including myself, who feel that his decision misapplied the law and also was not consistent with community values regarding sexual assault. Quite frankly, this decision has made all women at Stanford and at colleges all across the county less safe because it failed to take into account the deterrent impact of the sentence. When you have a crime like this and you conclude that because there was alcohol involved or because the perpetrator had a history of achievement, that we will treat it less severely than the state legislature has mandated. That is, the state legislature provided a 2-year minimum sentence and the judge deviated from that and to grant him probation. Then what you're saying is essentially that describes every campus rape. Unfortunately, particularly at Stanford, all of these young men are very high achieving, and by granting that exception, you're saying basically to women on college campuses, you're on your own. And we find that unacceptable. We're going to gather the necessary signatures. We have a website, recallerinpersky.com. If you're interested in signing up, if your viewers are interested in signing up to get updates, they can go there.
Professor Michelle Landis-Dauber, thank you for coming on with that side of the story. We obviously will continue to follow that case.
All right. Hopefully, this professor will be successful in her efforts to recall the judge. Now, I opened up with the statement about white privilege. And I need to amend that somewhat. White people have privilege, but all white people don't have the same white privilege. This young man, as stated, attended Stanford University, one of the most prestigious universities in the country. He attended Stanford based on an athletic scholarship to be on the swim team. He had aspirations to make it to the Olympics. I don't know if he would have made it or not. I don't know that much about this guy. I do know that he raped this young woman. And the judge basically gave him a slap on the wrist. The judge went against rules and requirements on sentencing, i.e. sentencing guidelines, which mandated 2 years of jail time. And this judge dropped it down to 6 months with the possibility of getting out after doing only 3 months based on good behavior. Why? Because a long sentence would ruin his life. And the probation officer report that he received supported that. Okay, how many of people like you or me, and I am not of means, and I'm assuming a lot of you that are watching this are not of means, how many of us know young people that had never been in trouble, that made a poor decision, are faced with punishment from the judicial system, and the judge not considering what that punishment would do to their lives in the future, only focusing on the severity of the crime. Now, let me give you an example. A young man, 16 to 17, has consensual sex with a girl age 15. Now, I know what you're going to say if you're versed in the law. A girl of the age of 15 in most states is not able to legally give consent to a sexual act. I get that. The boy obviously is arrested and convicted of quote-unquote statutory rape, though the girl fully admits that it was consensual on her part, though she was not of legal age to give consent. And she may have, which happens in some cases, pursued the boy, and he could have said no. Okay, but anyway, let's get past that. The judge never considers what it's going to do to the young man. He applies the statute and the minimum sentencing requirements. Now that's if it's a white kid. If it's a black kid or a Hispanic kid, the judge will throw the book at the kid, not considering what it would do to the kid's life. And this is in a quote-unquote quasi-consensual situation. In this particular case, this was not consensual. It was straight out rape. The perpetrator of the rape was of a class that the judge considered protected. And the judge went out of his way to grant special protections to this kid. This kid should have gotten at least 5 years. And you could say what you want, but alcohol is never a defense. And what made it even worse is the victim wanted to settle the case. She just wanted this kid to acknowledge what he did. And this young man and his family refused to settle it, though all the evidence was there. It was a cut and dry case of rape. But because he would not accept what he did as being a crime, trying to blame it on alcohol, trying in his own statements claiming that both he and the victim made poor decisions. The victim didn't decide that she wanted to be raped. So as far as that particular decision that he is trying to intimate that she made, no, that just didn't happen. But again, this kid going to Stanford, it becomes an elitist and a protected class in the judge's eyes, i.e. my call for it to be considered white privilege. Now again, I hope that this judge gets recalled. He did a disservice to everyone. 6 months with the possibility of being out in 3 is nothing compared to the effect that this kid had on this woman's life. She will never forget that. If you know any victim of rape, man or woman, because men get raped too, but in particular women, they will tell you that if they have ever been raped, it is the one memory that they never forget. They can get over it, they can get past it, but they never forget it. This kid, after he does his time, and yes, he's going to be labeled a sex offender, he will have the opportunity to get past it. He will have the opportunity to forget it. He will have the opportunity to go on with his life, and people look the other way if they are made aware that he committed this crime. She won't have that opportunity.